and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host, Shivangi Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. Nepalese climbers set astonishing records on Mount Everest. India's startup boom on track to hit $1 trillion milestone. And public reacts to protests in POJK demand government accountability. Let's begin the show. Scaling new heights, 3 climbers from Nepal have set remarkable new records on the world's highest peak, Mount Everest. On one side, the famous climber Kami Rita Sherpa has achieved his 30th ascent, setting a record for the most climbs. On the other, a Nepali woman has reclaimed the world record for the fastest women's ascent to the summit. Additionally, a Nepali climber set a unique record by summiting Everest 3 times in just 8 days, 13 hours and 35 minutes. Upon their arrival in Kathmandu, the city warmly welcomed them for these outstanding achievements. Although these feats are incredible, they are a part of a proud tradition of excellence in Nepalese mountaineering.
This week witnessed a monumental achievement on the world's highest peak, Mount Everest, which towers at an awe-inspiring 8,848 meters above sea level. In an extraordinary display of human endurance and mountaineering prowess, Nepalese climbers, renowned for their unmatched skill and resilience, have once again made history. Leading this remarkable feat, Dawa Finjuk Sherpa accomplished the astounding task of scaling Mount Everest 3 times within a mere span of 8 days, 13 hours and 35 minutes. His summits achieved on May 12, May 17 and May 20th were part of the 7 Summit Trek Expert Expedition and were accomplished with the aid of supplemental oxygen. This incredible achievement underscores not only the physical and mental fortitude required to conquer Everest, but also highlights the Sherpa's indispensable role in high-altitude mountaineering.
This is one of my dream to make one record in my life. So I choose this one, climbing 8 days, 13 hours. and 35 minutes. खुसी लागिरहेछ खास त रेकर्ड भनेको आफैमा एउटा खुसीको कुरा हो त्यो नि अब यत्रो काम गरे यति धेरै काम गरिसकेपछि एउटा रेकर्डको लागि केही गर्छु भन्ने चाहिँ मेरो एउटा इच्छा थियो त्यो चाहिँ यसपालि आएर पुरा भयो
Another remarkable achievement came from Nepali female climber Funju Jagmu Lama, who reclaimed the world record for the fastest women's ascent to Everest. She received a rousing welcome upon her arrival in Kathmandu. Lama set out for the base camp and reached the summit in just 14 hours and 35 minutes. Completing the round trip in 24 hours and 26 minutes, she regained the record she had initially set in 2018. This formed one half of a record attempt. The method used by record keepers at Guinness World Records counts how long a climber takes to both ascend from the base camp and descend from the summit safely. By conquering the world's highest peak, she not only breaks physical barriers but also challenges societal norms, inspiring future generations.
All over the world, सबैजना मान्छेले चाहिँ मलाई एउटा सबैजनाले सपोर्ट अनि मलाई बेस्ट विशेस दिएर पठाउनु भएको सो सबैको मलाई बेस्ट विशेस म एउटा गाइड मान्छे हो मैले एउटा नेपालमा विदेशीहरु अलिकति धेरै लिएर मैले राम्रो गाइडिङ कसरी गर्ने भन्ने मेरो यही मात्र गोल हो खासै मेरो त्यस्तो अहिले मेरो त्यस्तो प्रोजेक्टहरु त्यस्तो रेकर्डहरुको मेरो प्लान केही पनि छैन तर मैले अपर्च्युनिटी पाए पनि मैले कुनै दिनमा मैले एउटा आइडिया आए भने चाहिँ मैले गर्न पनि सक्छु
Meanwhile, 54-year-old climber Sherpa Kami Rita returned to Nepal's capital Kathmandu after reaching the Mount Everest peak for the 30th time. He climbed Everest by the traditional southeast ridge route. He first climbed Everest in 1994 and has done so almost every year since, except for 3 years when authorities closed the mountain for various reasons. These extraordinary achievements not only set new records but also highlight the strong spirit of Nepalese climbers. Summit on Mount Everest was particularly challenging due to the unpredictable weather patterns and the ongoing environmental changes affecting the region. Despite these obstacles, the team's meticulous planning, physical conditioning, and untiring determination were key factors in their success.
Moving on, from its first unicorn in 2011 to the remarkable milestone of over 100 unicorns today, the evolution of India's startup ecosystem has been truly remarkable. A recent report indicates that the new emergence of new unicorns could propel India's economy by $1 trillion by 2030, pushing it to a $7 trillion valuation and creating 50 million jobs. Let's take a look.
The startup landscape in India has undergone a dynamic evolution since the inception of the Startup India initiative in 2016. In 2021, India witnessed a surge in unicorns with 43 startups achieving valuations exceeding $1 billion. A recent report by the Confederation of Indian Industry (CII) titled Unicorn 2.0 Adding the Next Trillion envisions the potential of India's startup ecosystem to contribute $1 trillion to the country's estimated $7 trillion economy by financial year 2030, consequently generating over 50 million jobs. According to the report's findings, India's 100+ unicorns and approximately 100,000 startups have made a substantial contribution of 10 to 15% to GDP growth between 2016 and 2023. This explosion in entrepreneurial activity, coupled with related corporate ventures, has injected an estimated $140 billion into the economy by financial year 2023 alone.
We are an evolving ecosystem. If you look at it, 3 years back, the number of startups which were there in the public market was almost negligible. Now we have 6+ startups which are gone public and more startups going public this year. So we are starting to see India becoming a bigger and bigger force in manufacturing in the coming years and playing their part in global supply chain. I would say the right question to ask would be that would India become like the number 1 or the number 2 economy in the world by 2047? I believe yes, that will be happening.
Bamboo India, founded by Ashwini Shinde and Yogesh Shinde in Pune city, is a notable startup. Established on August 15, 2016, this venture has transformed the perception of bamboo from being seen as a poor man's timber to wise man's timber. Bamboo India specializes in creating innovative bamboo products, serving as eco-friendly alternatives to plastic products, thereby contributing significantly to environmental conservation.
Even though we are the world's second largest bamboo growing nation, and we are only exporting 4% to the global market. So I thought, why not the things we should take up, because this is something directly related to the farmers. You can have lots of angles towards it, like Plastic Free India or Swachh Bharat Mission or Atmanirbhar Bharat or Skillful India. So all those missions can fulfill with this bamboo. So that's why I started this venture in bamboo.
In today's climate, startup culture is attracting many young entrepreneurs. Boards of Indian companies are also increasingly including younger members. As per data from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, more than a third of people who received a direct identification number or DIN in the last fiscal year were aged 30 years or younger. A DIN is an 8-digit unique identification number which is allotted to an individual who is the director of a company. In the 2022-23 fiscal year, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs issued 420,000 DINs, of which 123,000 were younger than 30 years, while another 182,000 were between the ages of 31 to 45 years. There has been increased funding opportunities, especially from private equity and venture capital firms, which are incentivizing youth to choose an entrepreneurial path. Startups are revolutionizing India's economy in sectors like manufacturing, IT and digital services, agricultural ecosystems, healthcare services, travel and tourism, modern retail and e-commerce. These sectors are not only driving current growth but are forecasted to catalyze further expansion, employment and could increase exports by 20 to 23 times by the financial year 2030.
The recent blasphemy accusation against a Christian man in Pakistan underscores the ongoing misuse of blasphemy laws, leading it to heightened religious tensions and targeting of minorities. A Christian man, Nazir Masih, was brutally attacked by a mob over alleged blasphemy. Accused of discrediting the Quran, Masih's ordeal, including theft of his belongings, was captured on viral videos. 5 other members of the Christian community were also injured in the attack. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has raised alarms over the potential for the increased abuse following the recent legislative changes, which disproportionately affect minority groups. We have this report.
In Pakistan's eastern Punjab province, Sargodha city, a Christian man named Nazir Masih was brutally attacked by an angry mob over suspicions of blasphemy. Police officials reported that Masih was accused of desecrating the Quran, a charge that often leads to violent reprisals in Pakistan. Viral videos on social media captured the mob stealing his belongings during the assault. 5 other Christians were also injured in the attack. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has expressed profound concern over the safety of Christians in Sargodha city following this incident. Approximately 450 individuals, including 50 identified suspects, surrounded Masih's home and shoe factory, accusing the elderly man of desecrating a religious book. The mob set fire to the factory, nearby shops and houses, subjecting Masih to brutal treatment.
तकरीबन 60-70-80 लाख का माल था, वो सब उन्होंने बाहर निकाल कर जला दिया। और वो लोग जो थे हमारे अजीज, वो दहशत की वजह से अपने घर में उन्हें दरवाज़ा बंद कर लिया और वो ईंटें और डोरे मार रहे थे और तरह तरह की जो है वो नारेबाजी हो रही थी। तो वहाँ तो जाना भी बड़ा मुश्किल था, क्योंकि पुलिस और रेंजर जो थी वो मकान के चारों तरफ खड़ी थी। और फिर आस्ता आस्ता दूसरे अफसर आए तो वो बस नारेबाजी करते रहे और इस तरह के यही कहते रहे कि काफिरों को मारकर छोड़ेंगे, काफिरों को मारकर।
Blasphemy accusations in Pakistan often incite mob violence, leading to lynchings even before legal proceedings can take place. Convictions for blasphemy are common, with at least 50 individuals currently in custody on such charges. Since 1990, at least 80 people have been killed over blasphemy allegations. A Pakistani Christian man speaking anonymously described living in constant fear due to the pervasive threat of blasphemy accusations. He highlighted the systemic failure of Pakistan's state departments to protect minority communities, accusing law enforcement agencies of tacitly facilitating perpetrators rather than safeguarding victims.
As a 27-year-old Pakistani Christian who has never been abroad, since the day that I have been born until the moment that I am standing over here, I and each Christian who calls himself a Pakistani lives under fear, lives under pressure, lives under a constant threat of being, God forbid, alleged to have committed blasphemy. And what has happened today in Sargodha is a realization of that. This begs the question whether the Punjab police, whether the Pakistani law enforcement agencies, be it the MI, be it the ISI, who are under a mandate to safeguard us, who are under a mandate to safeguard Pakistani Christians, who are under mandate to secure law and order situation all across Pakistan, instead of following their lawful duty, instead of ensuring what they get paid to do, they seem to be tacit facilitators of the perpetrators.
In January 2023, Pakistan's already stringent blasphemy laws were further tightened, increasing the minimum penalty for insulting individuals associated with Prophet Muhammad from 3 to 10 years in prison, along with a fine of 1 million Pakistani rupees. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has raised alarms over the potential for increased abuse following the recent legislative charges, which disproportionately affect minority groups such as Ahmadis, Christians, and Shia Muslims. An alarming example of this oppression occurred in Janawala, where a mob burned down 24 churches and over 80 Christian homes following blasphemy allegations. The rise in sectarian violence has led several countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada, to advise their citizens against traveling to Pakistan. This advisory adds to the existing travel restrictions due to terrorism and other conflicts, further highlighting the country's security challenges. Until significant changes are implemented, the threat of blasphemy-related violence will continue to loom over Pakistan's religious minorities, casting a shadow over their daily lives and their hopes for a safer, more inclusive future.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
Heavy rains triggered by Cyclone Remal have flooded fish farms and damaged croplands in southern Bangladesh, causing huge financial losses and damage. Drone footage showed vast swathes of areas inundated in Rampal near the southern coast, where a fish farmer and cropland owner, Pratap Mustafi, said nearby river dams had overflowed and flooded his farmland. Cyclone Remal is the first of the frequent storms to pound South Asia this year, as climate change drives up surface temperatures at sea. At least 10 people were killed in Bangladesh, adding some victims died en route to shelters or when their homes or walls collapsed and drowned during the storm. The United Nations Human Rights Office warned there was a risk of a serious rise in violence in Myanmar's Rakhine state, where it received frightening and disturbing reports of the killing of Rohingya people and burning of their property. A powerful armed ethnic group in Myanmar known as the Arakan Army said last week it had won control over a town in the western state of Rakhine after weeks of fighting. It has denied accusations it had targeted members of the Muslim minority Rohingya during the offensive. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said that tens of thousands of civilians had been displaced by the fighting in the townships of Butidong and Mongdo, with an estimated 45,000 Rohingya fleeing near the border with Bangladesh to seek protection. Rohingya have faced persecution in Buddhist-majority Myanmar for decades. After escaping a military-led crackdown in 2017, nearly 1 million of them live crammed into refugee camps in Bangladesh's border district of Cox's Bazar. A young Iraqi in Basra took his passion onto the streets and shared it with his fellow citizens. Ali Tahir, a public sector employee and astronomy enthusiast, brought his telescope to the city river bank and started asking people for 1,000 dinars to look at the moon. People like to think of themselves as the moon, said Tahir, referring to a common phrase in Arabic which uses the moon as a comparison to compliment someone. So he used the slogan, "Look at yourself for 1,000 dinars," to attract people to his telescope. Self-educated in astronomy through social media, Tahir offers his visitors his knowledge about the topic with the hope that more people would get involved in his favorite science. While gazing at the moon in the sky, Tahir's visitors have the chance to learn facts about the space, moon, and the planets. Taiwan's parliament this week passed a reform package to increase oversight of the government pushed by the opposition but opposed by the ruling party, which did not have the numbers to block it. The parliament reforms give lawmakers the power to ask the military, private companies or individuals to disclose information deemed relevant by parliamentarians. They also criminalize contempt of parliament by government officials and require the president to give regular reports to parliament and answer lawmakers' questions, which would be a first for Taiwan. Outside parliament, protesters showed their anger at the reforms being passed, shouting "Refuse Chinese political interference" among other slogans. The protests have been taking place against a backdrop of broader concern about efforts by China, which views Taiwan as its own territory to influence the island's politics. The Democratic Progressive Party's Lai Ching-te won the presidency in January elections, but the party lost its majority in the parliament. Taiwan's main opposition party, Kuomintang, along with the small Taiwan People's Party, together have the most seats.
The streets of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir are echoing with demands for accountability as residents express their frustration and resolve in the face of ongoing protests. The unrest, fueled by grievances over governance and rights, has brought to light deep-seated frustrations among the populace. With accusations of governmental incompetence and deception, the public outcry underscores the urgent need for resolution and acknowledgement of fundamental rights.
The residents of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir have responded to the recent protests with a blend of worry and resolve. Those deeply impacted by the unrest have emphasized the necessity for resolution to tackle fundamental grievances. Locals have attributed the escalation of violence during the protests to governmental incompetence, stating that had the administration addressed these demands earlier, the protests would not have reached such levels of intensity. A local resident named Raja Amin recently offered articulate viewpoints on several matters concerning POJK.
ये लोगों के बुनियादी हकूक़ की जंग थी, जिसमें कोई ऐसा इशू नहीं था जिस पे कोई मुल्क तोड़ने की बात हो, कोई मुल्क किसी दूसरे के मुखालफ की बात हो। बात ये थी कि यहाँ बिजली, पानी और आटे का और जिस पे रियासत को 48 अशिया UNO में सब्सिडी दी गई, लेकिन अफसोस ये है कि जो चीज़ डायरेक्टली माननी थी, जो हक था इनका, उसे इस वज़ीर आज़म ने पुरतशद्दुद बना के उस चीज़ को माना है, जो इसकी नाकामी का बड़ा सबब है।
The puppet Prime Minister of POJK, Chaudhry Anwarul Haq, had received backlash for his management of the protest with accusations of mishandling the situation. Anwarul Haq is perceived by POJK residents as merely a figurehead, lacking genuine authority or autonomy in decision-making and heavily influenced by external forces. Raja accused Anwar of deceiving the public and making false commitments.
मौजूदा वज़ीर-ए-आज़म, ये जो नाम नहाद वज़ीर-ए-आज़म अनवारुल हक बैठा है, इसने इसको मिस हैंडल किया और लोगों से झूठ बोला। झूठ बोल के उसने इससे पहले 2 बार माहदे किए। माहदे करने के बाद वो इस बात पे ठहरा नहीं, क्योंकि इसने वो लिख के दिया था कि ये मैं मंजूर करता हूँ। फिर इसने जब ये तहरीक का आगाज़ हुआ तो फिर इसने इसको पुरतशद्दद बनाया। तो ये रियासत के इस नाकाम वज़ीर-ए-आज़म का अपना कसूर है कि जिसने झूठ बोल के फिर इस तहरीक को पुरतशद्दद खुद बनाया।
POJK recently experienced violent protests and clashes, with demonstrators expressing grievances related to governance and rights. These incidents involved confrontations between protesters and security forces, resulting in deaths, injuries, and property damage. The unrest underscored the simmering discontent among residents of POJK, who have long felt marginalized and voiceless under the region's governance structure. Issues such as political suppression, lack of representation, and restricted access to basic resources have fueled frustration and anger among the populace. In response to the protests in Muzaffarabad, Shahbaz Sharif was compelled to urgently announce relief measures, recognizing the shock and urgency of the situation.
Now it's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We'll be back next week at the same time. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.